High-income skills do not make a man valuable because they sound impressive. They make him impossible to ignore because they create visible proof where pain, potential, and explanations failed. If you are starting with no support, no network, no family money, and no one opening doors, your first mistake is thinking the world will eventually recognize what is inside you. It will not. The market does not respect hidden ambition. It respects signals it can measure. A man who can sell, persuade, automate, analyze, build, protect, market, or communicate at a high level becomes harder to dismiss because he touches what every serious system protects: money, speed, trust, influence, and control. The counter trap is chasing every skill to feel productive. That is still avoidance. Choose one. Build proof. Make it public. Stop asking to be believed. Become expensive to ignore. But here is the wound most men refuse to name. You are not invisible because you lack ambition. You are invisible because the world has no public evidence that your ambition can produce value. That is the difference between a man who feels powerful in private and a man who becomes valuable in the market. The private man has desire. The public man has proof. The private man explains. The public man demonstrates. The private man waits for someone to recognize what is hidden inside him. The public man builds something so visible that recognition becomes a delayed reaction, not a request. This is the mother law of the hierarchy. The market does not reward pain. It does not reward potential. It does not reward explanations. It rewards visible proof. Your family may care about your feelings. Your friends may care about your story. But the market cares about what you can make happen. Can you bring money into a system? Can you move belief? Can you save time? Can you clarify decisions? Can you build tools? Can you protect trust? Can you turn attention into buyers? Can you communicate value so clearly that people stop mispricing you? That is why this list is not random. The order matters. The first skills sit closest to money, then belief, then speed, then decisions, then systems, then trust, then attention, and finally perception. Miss this order and you will collect skills like fantasies while remaining replaceable. You will spend 1 month learning copywriting, the next month playing with artificial intelligence, the next month watching coding tutorials, then sales videos, then marketing breakdowns, then productivity systems, then another new opportunity that makes you feel behind again. That is not strategy. That is the fear of commitment, wearing the mask of self-improvement. Because choosing one skill forces judgment. It forces you to become a beginner in public. It forces you to produce ugly first proof. It forces you to face the possibility that your imagined identity is ahead of your actual market value. And that is exactly why most men avoid it. The final skill in this hierarchy matters because the higher you rise, competence alone stops being enough. At the bottom, you are paid to do tasks. At the top, you are paid to create clarity, move people, frame value, and control perception. A man can become skilled and still be ignored if his value is invisible. A man can work hard and still be replaceable if his work is not scarce. A man can suffer for years and still remain poor if his suffering does not become evidence. So as you listen, do not ask which skill sounds impressive. Ask which skill would make you harder to replace in the next 90 days. Write that one down. That is the only skill that matters right now. Machiavelli understood this before the modern market existed. In The Prince, he wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few really know what you are." That sentence is not ancient philosophy, it is modern career warfare. People do not evaluate your hidden character first. They evaluate your visible signal. Your family sees your current position. Your friends see your current status. Employers see your current market value. Clients see your proof. The world does not inspect your soul before deciding whether to respect you. It looks at what you can demonstrate. That is why pain is useless when it remains private. Potential is useless when it remains invisible. Ambition is useless when it is unsupported by evidence. Look at Michael Dell. At 19, he did not wait for a perfect office, a perfect team, or a perfect market identity. He started Dell with about $1,000 from his college dorm room in 1984. His early proof was not a motivational speech. It was upgraded computers sold directly to customers. His power came from understanding a simple mechanism. Remove the middleman, customize the machine, serve the buyer faster. Pressure created urgency. Action created proof. Proof created trust. Trust created money. Money created leverage. The market did not respect his dream first. It respected the working offer. Now look at Andrew Carnegie. He came from poverty. His early work was not glamorous. He was a bobbin boy, then a telegraph messenger. But he learned the communication infrastructure of his era. He taught himself the system. He became a telegraph operator. Then he moved closer to railroads, information, speed, and industrial power. Carnegie did not begin with status. He began by mastering a system that status depended on. That is the lesson most unsupported men need to understand. If you cannot start with status, start with proof. If you cannot start with a network, start with usefulness. If no one opens the door, become the man who controls something the room already needs. Unsupported men do not rise by being understood. They rise by becoming useful in a way powerful systems can measure. And this is where most men betray themselves. They collect skills like weak men collect fantasies. Copywriting this month, artificial intelligence automation next month, coding after that, sales when they panic, marketing when another influencer tells them it is the new gold rush. They are not building, they are escaping the humiliation of being a beginner. Because choosing one skill means you can be judged. It means your work can be rejected. It means your proof can be compared. It means the fantasy has to become visible. And once it becomes visible, it can no longer protect your ego. That is why the unsupported man must become colder, not cruel, not reckless. Cold. He must stop asking, what skill sounds impressive? He must ask, what skill makes me harder to replace? Number 1. Sales. Sales is the closest skill to money because it brings revenue into a system. A business can survive many kinds of weakness for a short time. Bad meetings, slow processes, confused managers, imperfect branding, weak internal culture. But it cannot survive without customers. No customers means no cash. No cash means no options. No options means the system dies. That is why the man who can sell becomes harder to ignore. He touches the bloodstream of every business. Revenue. Most men misunderstand sales because they think sales is begging. They think it is pressure. They think it is manipulation. They imagine some desperate man chasing people, forcing conversations, trying to convince strangers to buy things they do not need. That is not real sales. Real sales is diagnosis. A real salesman understands fear, desire, objection, timing, trust, and decision. He knows that people do not buy because you need money. They buy because you remove pain, increase status, create certainty, reduce risk, or offer a better future. The weak man tries to be liked. The strategic man tries to understand what the other person already wants, what they fear losing, what they do not trust, and what must become clear before they act. He does not beg, he reveals cost. He does not pressure randomly. He shows the consequence of staying the same. He does not chase validation. He moves the buyer from confusion to decision. That is why sales is powerful for a man with no support. If you can bring money into a business, you are not merely asking for opportunity, you are creating it. You can walk into a small company and say, "I can help you get more clients." You can help a service provider close more deals. You can help an agency win more accounts. You can help a founder turn interest into revenue. You can sell your own offer. You can sell your own skill. You can sell your own proof. Sales forces a man to confront reality faster than almost any other skill. The market answers, yes or no, interested or not interested, trust or doubt, value or noise. There is no hiding behind theory. And that is why men who fear rejection avoid sales. Rejection feels like exposure. It feels like the world is not just rejecting the offer. It is rejecting the man behind it. But that is the exact weakness sales can kill. Sales teaches you that rejection is not always a verdict on your worth. Sometimes it is a signal about your positioning, your timing, your offer, your trust, your clarity, or your understanding of the buyer. A weak man takes rejection personally. A strategic man extracts intelligence. He asks, where did trust break? Where did the offer feel unclear? Where did the buyer not feel enough pain? Where did I talk before I understood? Where did I explain when I should have diagnosed? This is how sales changes identity. You stop seeing yourself as a man waiting to be chosen. You become a man who can create movement. But sales has one weakness. It dies when you are not present. If your voice is the only engine, you must keep speaking. If your calls are the only system, you must keep calling. If your presence is required every time belief must move, then your income is still trapped inside your hours. That is why the next skill matters. Number 2. Copywriting. Copywriting is sales through language, not pretty writing, not clever words, not sounding intelligent. Copywriting is the ability to move attention, belief, and action with precision. The weak man writes to impress. The strategic man writes to convert. He understands that words are not decorations. They are levers. A headline can stop attention. A hook can create identity pressure. An offer can make hesitation feel expensive. A story can turn distrust into belief. A case study can turn vague competence into visible proof. This matters because unsupported men usually lack access. No family money, no warm introductions, no powerful network, no one opening doors. So language becomes one of the first tools of entry. You write the message, you write the pitch, you write the post, you write the video, you write the offer, you write the proof. You turn private competence into public signal. This is where most men fail. They think if their value is real, people will eventually notice. They are wrong. Unframed value gets ignored. Unclear value gets misunderstood. Hidden value gets treated as non-existent. Machiavelli wrote that men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand. In the modern market, this means people judge by what they can see. Your landing page, your case study, your portfolio, your public thinking, your message, your video, your offer, your proof. If your value is real but invisible, the world will treat it as non-existent. That is not fair, but it is useful to understand. Copywriting gives you control over the first interpretation of your value. It teaches you how to name pain clearly. It teaches you how to make the cost of inaction visible. It teaches you how to frame an offer around the buyer, not your ego. It teaches you how to turn a feature into a result. It teaches you how to turn a result into a reason to act now. Most men write from themselves. I am good. I am hardworking. I am passionate. I know this skill. I want this chance. I have potential. That is weak positioning. The market does not care that you want a chance. It cares whether you can reduce pain, increase profit, save time, lower risk, or create an outcome worth paying for. Strong copy does not say, believe in me. Strong copy says, here is the problem, here is the cost, here is the mechanism, here is the proof, here is the next move. That is why copywriting is not merely a writing skill. It is perception control. It is economic psychology through language. It is the difference between being a man with ability and being a man whose ability can be understood. But language alone is not enough if your work still depends on manual effort. A man can write well and still waste hours repeating tasks that a sharper man would systemize. A man can sell and persuade, but if he cannot create speed, he remains limited. That brings us to the next skill. Number 3. Artificial intelligence automation. This is not about playing with prompts. A man who only asks artificial intelligence random questions is not powerful. He is entertained. The powerful use artificial intelligence to remove friction. They automate repetitive work. They connect tools. They reduce hours. They create workflows. They make one person perform like a small team. That is why artificial intelligence automation is valuable. Every organization has waste, manual reporting, slow follow-up, repetitive emails, disorganized data, customer support bottlenecks, internal documentation chaos, scattered files, repeated tasks that intelligent people should not be doing by hand. The man who can look at a messy system and say, I can remove 10 hours of waste every week, becomes valuable fast. Not because he talks about the future, because he reduces cost in the present. Most men speak about artificial intelligence like spectators. They talk about how the world is changing. They argue about which tool is best. They watch tutorials. They collect prompts. They imagine themselves becoming powerful because they understand the trend. But understanding a trend is not proof. Proof is a workflow. Proof is a before and after. Proof is a process that saved time. Proof is a report that now takes minutes instead of hours. Proof is a lead follow-up system that stops prospects from disappearing. Proof is a customer support process that answers faster. Proof is a content operation that produces cleaner drafts, better research, and faster publishing without losing quality. The market does not reward the man who says, I know artificial intelligence. It rewards the man who says, here is the process I improved. Here is what changed. Here is the time saved. Here is the new speed. This skill matters because speed is power. A slow man may be intelligent, but he becomes expensive to tolerate. A fast man who produces clean output becomes difficult to ignore. But speed without judgment creates faster mistakes. That is the hidden danger. Artificial intelligence can help you move faster, but it cannot decide what matters for you. It can produce more information, but more information can make weak men even more confused. It can generate reports, summaries, ideas, and workflows, but if you do not understand what decision the work is supposed to improve, you are only automating noise. That is why the next skill matters. Number 4. Data analysis. Businesses are drowning in numbers but starving for decisions. This is why data analysis is power. The average company does not need more dashboards. It needs someone who can identify what matters. Where is money leaking? Which customer segment is profitable? Which campaign is wasting budget? Which product creates retention? Which metric is lying? Which trend is real? Which decision should change because of this information? A low-level analyst reports what happened. A stronger analyst explains what matters. The highest-level analyst changes what the business does next. That is the shift. From information to interpretation. From reporting to judgment. From data to power. Most men think data analysis is about charts, formulas, and tools. Those things matter, but they are not the core. The core is judgment under uncertainty. Numbers are not automatically truth. Numbers can hide reality when the person reading them does not understand incentives, context, and behavior. A campaign can have many clicks and still attract the wrong buyers. A video can get views and still fail to build trust. A product can have revenue and still be bleeding retention. A team can look busy and still be avoiding the work that creates growth. A dashboard can look professional and still answer the wrong question. That is why a valuable data analyst is not a chart maker. He is a decision weapon. He can walk into confusion and create clarity. He can separate signal from noise. He can tell a business where attention is being wasted, where money is leaking, where customers are leaving, and where the next move should be made. For an unsupported man, this is powerful because it gives him strategic usefulness. You may not have status yet. You may not have family backing. You may not have a network. But if you can show people the truth inside their numbers, you become difficult to dismiss. Because every serious system fears blindness. A business fears wasting money without knowing why. A founder fears making the wrong decision. A manager fears reporting growth while the foundation is weakening. An investor fears being fooled by surface metrics. A team fears working hard on the wrong thing. The man who can reveal what matters becomes valuable. But data analysis has its own limitation. A man can understand the numbers and still remain dependent on someone else to build the system. He can say what should change, but if he cannot create the tool, the workflow, the product, or the mechanism, he still needs another layer of execution. And that is where the next skill becomes dangerous in the right hands. Number 5. Software development. Software is creation leverage. Sales brings money into a system. Copywriting moves belief. Artificial intelligence automation creates speed. Data analysis improves decisions. But software development allows a man to create tools, products, systems, platforms, and assets that work beyond his own hours. That is why software is dangerous in the right hands. One man can build a tool used by thousands. One man can create a system that replaces manual labor. One man can turn knowledge into an asset. One man can build something once and let it operate while he sleeps, learns, sells, improves, or builds the next layer of leverage. This is the difference between labor and architecture. Labor says, "Pay me for my time." Architecture says, "I built something that performs a function, whether I am present or not." That is why software has created so much wealth. Not because coding is magical, but because software can multiply execution. A human has limits. A tool can run continuously. A human forgets. A system remembers. A human gets tired. A program repeats. A human needs attention. A product can serve many users at once. This is leverage. But do not romanticize coding. Coding alone does not make you powerful. Many coders are invisible because they only execute instructions. They do not understand users. They do not understand markets. They do not understand distribution. They do not understand business pain. They can build, but they cannot decide what should exist. They can solve technical problems, but they cannot explain why the solution matters. They can write code, but they cannot connect the code to money, speed, trust, influence, or control. That is why some developers become owners and others become replaceable labor. The difference is not only technical ability. The difference is judgment. The powerful developer does not just ask, "Can I build this?" He asks, "Why should this exist? What problem does it solve? Who feels the pain strongly enough to care? Who pays for it? What workflow does it improve? What behavior does it change? What advantage does it create? What manual process does it eliminate? What decision does it make easier? What risk does it reduce? What result becomes faster because this exists? That is when software becomes leverage. Not when it is clever, when it is useful, not when it impresses other developers, when it solves a problem that matters to people with money, urgency, or responsibility. For an unsupported man, software development can be a weapon because it allows him to create proof without waiting for permission. You do not need a committee to let you build. You do not need a family member to understand your ambition. You do not need friends to validate your direction. You can build a tool. You can build a small product. You can build an automation. You can build a calculator. You can build a dashboard. You can build a simple application that solves one painful problem. But here is where weak men betray themselves again. They try to build something impressive before they build something useful. They want the project to protect their identity. They want to say, "Look how intelligent I am." But the market does not reward your need to appear intelligent. It rewards usefulness under pressure. Build something specific. Build something small enough to finish. Build something tied to pain. Build something you can show. A tool that helps a freelancer track leads. A dashboard that helps a small business see cash flow. A simple system that organizes customer requests. A product that removes one repeated mistake. A calculator that helps someone make a decision faster. The first proof does not need to be grand. It needs to be real. Michael Dell did not begin by controlling the entire computer industry. He began with a working offer. Upgraded computers, sold directly, faster and more aligned with the buyer. Andrew Carnegie did not begin as an industrial titan. He began by learning the system powerful men depended on. The lesson repeats. Start where proof can be created, then use proof to move closer to power. But once tools, systems, and products become valuable, another problem appears. The more valuable a system becomes, the more dangerous its weaknesses become. Money attracts risk. Information attracts attack. Convenience hides vulnerability. That brings us to the next skill. Number 6. Cybersecurity. Trust is expensive. Risk is expensive. Risk is expensive. One breach can damage reputation, operations, customer confidence, and money. That is why cybersecurity matters. It protects what systems cannot afford to lose. Data, access, infrastructure, reputation, continuity. The cybersecurity mind understands something most people ignore. Weakness often hides inside convenience. Weak passwords, careless access, exposed systems, untrained teams, poor monitoring, bad recovery plans, outdated software, permissions given too easily, files shared without thought, employees clicking before thinking. Businesses often move fast and call it progress. But speed without protection creates fragile power. A company can spend years building trust and lose it because one door was left open. A founder can build a strong product and still suffer because the system was not protected. A team can believe everything is fine until one failure reveals that no one was watching the risk. This is why the man who can identify weakness before disaster becomes valuable. He protects the future. He protects money before it leaks. He protects trust before it breaks. He protects continuity before chaos arrives. But cybersecurity requires discipline, not paranoia. Discipline. You must think like an attacker without becoming one. You must understand weakness without exploiting people illegally. You must protect systems, not perform darkness. The world does not need another reckless man trying to look dangerous. It needs men who can carry responsibility. That is the real status of this skill. The cybersecurity man is paid because other people cannot afford ignorance. He is valuable because he sees what convenience hides. He asks the questions others avoid. Who has access? What happens if this fails? Where is the weak point? What is exposed? What would stop operations? What would damage trust? How fast could the system recover? Where is the business pretending that nothing can go wrong? That last question matters because weak systems often survive only because they have not yet been tested. The same is true for men. Some men think they are disciplined only because life has not pressured them hard enough. Some men think they are loyal only because betrayal has not cost them enough. Some men think they are secure only because their weakness has not been exposed publicly. Cybersecurity teaches a brutal principle. A weakness ignored is not a weakness removed. It is only a weakness waiting for pressure. This is why the world pays men who reduce danger. But protection is not multiplication. Cybersecurity protects the bloodstream. It does not always create more blood. A system can be safe and still not grow. A company can be protected and still invisible. A man can reduce risk and still need to create demand. That brings us to the next skill. Number 7. Performance marketing. Attention is not money, but controlled attention can become money. Performance marketing is valuable because it turns attention into leads, leads into buyers, and buyers into growth. It touches the bloodstream of business. A man who understands paid advertising, funnels, conversion rates, creative testing, landing pages, email sequences, and customer psychology becomes powerful because he knows how demand is manufactured, captured, and converted. But again, most men get trapped. They chase tactics, they study platforms, they obsess over hacks. They ask which button to press, which campaign type to use, which trend is working, which tool is hot, which platform is easier, which shortcut will make them rich faster. That is lower-level thinking. The real marketer asks colder questions. Who is the buyer? What pain already exists? What promise is believable? What proof lowers doubt? What offer makes action urgent? What message creates contrast? What metric decides survival? What does this person already want, but has not found the right reason to act on? Performance marketing is not posting online. It is economic psychology under measurement. This is what separates noise from power. A man can get attention and still fail. Many people can get views. Few can create trust. Fewer can turn trust into action. And even fewer can measure what created the action, improve it, and repeat it. That is why performance marketing is a high-income skill. It does not worship attention. It disciplines attention. It tests messages. It studies behavior. It measures response. It turns emotion into data and data into sharper persuasion. The weak marketer says, "This should work because I like it." The strategic marketer says, "The market will tell us." He tests. He reads the numbers. He studies where people clicked, where they stopped, where they acted, where the message failed. He does not attach his ego to one idea. He wants the truth. That makes him dangerous. Because when a man can generate demand, he no longer waits passively for opportunity. He can create motion. He can help a business grow. He can sell his own product. He can distribute his own proof. He can make his competence visible to the right people. This matters deeply for unsupported men. Because many unsupported men secretly hate visibility. They want recognition, but they resent the act of putting themselves forward. They want respect, but they refuse to communicate their work. They want opportunities, but they treat distribution like vanity. They say if the work is good, people should notice. That belief keeps men poor. Good work does not automatically travel. Good work needs positioning. Good work needs proof. Good work needs repetition. Good work needs a channel. Good work needs a message. Good work needs to be placed in front of people who already feel the problem it solves. Performance marketing teaches you that visibility is not begging. Visibility is distribution. There is no dignity in being useful but unseen. There is no nobility in building value that never reaches the people who need it. There is no strength in hiding behind the fantasy that the world should discover you without effort. The market is crowded. Attention is contested. Trust is expensive. If you do not learn how demand moves, you will depend on men who do. That dependence has a cost. You may become skilled but underpaid, useful but unknown, capable but mispriced, reliable but replaceable. This is why performance marketing creates leverage. It does not merely ask, how do we get seen? It asks, how do we get the right person to see the right promise with the right proof at the right moment? But even marketing has a ceiling. You can create attention, but if you cannot communicate strategically in higher status rooms, your value will still be limited. At lower levels, attention matters. At higher levels, framing matters. The higher you rise, the more communication becomes power. That brings us to the final skill. Number 8. Strategic communication. Strategic communication is the skill that controls how value is understood. The higher you rise, the more communication becomes power. At lower levels, people pay you to do tasks. At higher levels, people pay you to create clarity, to explain, to persuade, to negotiate, to lead, to position, to make complicated things simple enough for decisions. This is why many technically gifted men remain underpaid. They can do the work, but they cannot frame the value. They speak in complexity. They hide behind expertise. They expect the world to notice the depth. It will not. Machiavelli warned that a wise prince must rely on what is in his power, not what is in the power of others. Waiting for others to correctly interpret your value is not in your power. Communicating your value clearly is. This is the code law. If you cannot explain your value, you are depending on someone else to guess it correctly. That is weak positioning. Strategic communication is not talking more. It is saying what matters to the right person, in the right frame, at the right time, with enough proof to make doubt expensive. A man with strategic communication can enter a room and reduce confusion. He can explain the problem without drowning people in detail. He can frame the stakes. He can show the cost of inaction. He can name the decision. He can make his recommendation feel clear, measured, and necessary. This skill compounds every other skill. If you can sell but cannot communicate strategically, you may sound like a closer, not a leader. If you can write copy but cannot communicate strategically, you may convert attention but fail in negotiation. If you can automate but cannot explain the business value, people will see a clever workflow instead of saved money. If you can analyze data but cannot frame the decision, people will see charts instead of strategy. If you can build software but cannot explain the problem it solves, your tool may be ignored. If you can protect systems but cannot explain risk clearly, people may delay until damage occurs. If you can market but cannot communicate at a strategic level, you may generate leads but lose authority in higher rooms. This is why strategic communication is last. Not because it is least important, because it becomes more important as the other skills create more access. At first, you need proof. Then, you need positioning. Without strategic communication, proof can be misread. You may have value and still be treated as technical support. You may solve serious problems and still be spoken to like a replaceable worker. You may create revenue and still fail to negotiate your share. You may protect the system and still be noticed only after something breaks. You may build the engine and still watch someone else present it, claim it, and profit from it. That is not always because the world is unfair. Sometimes it is because you did not control the frame. A strategic man does not merely do valuable work. He makes the value visible. He connects his work to money, time, risk, growth, trust, or control. He does not say, "I worked hard on this." He says, "This reduced the process from 6 hours to 1." He does not say, "I made a dashboard." He says, "This revealed where budget was leaking." He does not say, "I built an automation." He says, "This removed repeated manual work and increased response speed." He does not say, "I wrote copy." He says, "This message increased qualified responses." He does not say, "I helped with marketing." He says, "This campaign turned attention into measurable demand." He does not say, "I know cybersecurity." He says, "This audit exposed the risks that could damage trust and operations." Strategic communication turns effort into evidence, evidence into leverage, leverage into options, options into sovereignty. Now the hierarchy is clear. Sales moves money. Copywriting moves belief. Artificial intelligence automation moves speed. Data analysis moves decisions. Software development creates systems. Cybersecurity protects trust. Performance marketing converts attention. Strategic communication controls perception. These skills are not random. They all touch power, money, speed, trust, influence, control, and that is why they make men impossible to ignore. But here is the final trap. If you try to build all 8, you will build none. A scattered man feels productive because he is always beginning. Beginning is easy. Beginning gives dopamine. Beginning protects the ego. Beginning lets you imagine mastery without paying the price of repetition. But the market does not pay for beginnings. It pays for competence. And competence requires time under pressure. So choose one skill, one market, one painful problem, one proof project, one public channel, one offer. For 90 days, do not switch. If you choose sales, document your outreach, objections, lessons, and closed deals. If you choose copywriting, write offers, landing pages, emails, hooks, and measure response. If you choose artificial intelligence automation, build workflows that save time and show the before and after. If you choose data analysis, analyze real business problems and explain the decision clearly. If you choose software, build a tool that solves a specific pain. If you choose cybersecurity, create legal audits, checklists, and risk breakdowns. If you choose performance marketing, study campaigns, build funnels, and test messaging. If you choose strategic communication, publish breakdowns that prove you can think, frame, and persuade. Build proof every week. Make it public. Not because strangers owe you attention, because hidden competence has no leverage. This is your first command. Choose one skill from the hierarchy before this day ends. Write down one proof project you can build in the next 7 days. Not a dream, not a plan that protects your ego. One visible piece of evidence that proves you are becoming more valuable. Do not ask your family to understand. Do not ask your friends to support. Do not ask society to notice the version of you that exists only in your imagination. Become visible, because the painful truth is this: you may be underestimated. Stop confusing the two. An underestimated man has evidence others have failed to see. An unproven man has identity without evidence. One needs distribution. The other needs discipline. This distinction will offend the part of you that wants comfort. Good. That part has cost you enough. The unsupported man cannot afford comforting lies. He cannot afford vague ambition. He cannot afford to keep explaining himself to people who do not control the gate he is trying to enter. He cannot afford to collect information while producing no evidence. He cannot afford another year of private intensity and public invisibility. If you are unsupported, this is not the end. It is the beginning of sovereignty. No one funding you means no one owns your rise. No one validating you means your proof must become louder than your explanations. No one opening doors means your skill must become the key. That is the identity shift. You are not a man waiting to be discovered. You are a man building evidence so strong, the market has to update its judgment. You are not here to collect skills. You are here to build leverage. You are not here to look impressive. You are here to become useful, visible, difficult to replace, and expensive to ignore. Machiavelli did not teach men to rely on hope. He taught them to understand power as it is, not as weak men wish it to be. And power in the modern market belongs to the man who can create measurable value and make that value visible. But understand this clearly. Proof is only the first weapon. The next problem is distribution, because a man can build proof and still stay invisible if nobody sees it in the right frame. That is why your proof must not remain buried in a folder. It must become a portfolio. It must become a case study. It must become a post. It must become a pitch. It must become a breakdown. It must become a visible record that shows what you can do, what problem you understand, what result you created, and why it matters. Do not make the market work hard to understand you. The market is too busy. Powerful people are too distracted. Systems are too overloaded. If your proof requires too much interpretation, someone louder, clearer, or better positioned will take the opportunity you thought your effort deserved. This is not a reason to become bitter. It is a reason to become sharper. Your job is not only to become valuable. Your job is to make your value legible. Legible means clear. Measurable. Specific. Public. Attached to outcomes. A man who says, "I am learning sales," is easy to ignore. A man who says, "I sent 50 targeted messages, booked 6 calls, learned the top objections, and closed 1 client," is harder to ignore. A man who says, "I am learning copywriting," is easy to ignore. A man who says, "I rewrote this landing page, clarified the offer, strengthened the proof, and improved response," is harder to ignore. A man who says, "I know artificial intelligence," is easy to ignore. A man who says, "I automated this reporting process and saved 10 hours a week," is harder to ignore. A man who says, "I analyze data," is easy to ignore. A man who says, "I found the campaign wasting budget and identified the customer segment producing profit," is harder to ignore. A man who says, "I code," is easy to ignore. A man who says, "I built this tool to solve this exact workflow problem," is harder to ignore. A man who says, "I know cybersecurity," is easy to ignore. A man who says, "I found these legal risks, created this checklist, and showed how to reduce exposure," is harder to ignore. A man who says, "I do marketing," is easy to ignore. A man who says, "I tested these messages, measured the funnel, and found which promise converted," is harder to ignore. A man who says, "I communicate well," is easy to ignore. A man who says, "Here is a breakdown that turned confusion into a clear decision," is harder to ignore. The pattern is always the same. Do not claim value. Demonstrate value. Do not explain ambition. Build evidence. Do not wait to be chosen. Create reasons the market must reprice you. And when people finally notice, do not be surprised. They were never waiting for your potential. They were waiting for your proof. So here is your second command. Before you leave this video, choose the skill you will commit to for 90 days and write 1 sentence that defines your first proof project. Make it specific. Make it visible. Make it small enough to start. Make it serious enough to matter. Then build it publicly. Because the world is not obligated to believe in the man you imagine yourself to be. It responds to the man your evidence reveals. Stop asking to be believed. Build the proof. Position it correctly. Become expensive to ignore.